Welcome to the Addison Bowen podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. I'm super excited to bring Rain, my lovely OBM, onto the podcast today. We have a very special relationship because not only is Rain my OBM, but also she is in my mastermind. So we're going to talk a little bit about the nuances between handling that relationship, as well as just Rain's journey in lots of my offers. We've basically been working together for 3 years now, which is crazy. Obviously, we took a break in between that, but she was in one of my group programs 3 years ago and then joined the mastermind recently and is one of my closest friends. So I'm just really excited to talk about our journey together today and also just all of her crazy business wins. So if you guys don't know Rain, she started her business back in 2021 as a virtual assistant. And then when she came into the Visionary Accelerator, my group program in 2022, I believe, or late 2021, she pivoted into the online business management role or COO role. And so that is where she's at currently. She is my OBM. She's been my OBM for about 2 years now, I think. We should probably look at our anniversary date and because I need to buy you a present or something if we're getting up there. I feel like it's August this year. And she's not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't even know how people function without an OBM. So I'm super excited to chat with her today and chat about her crazy up levels in her business. So Rain, can you tell us a little bit about you and what an OBM is for those of you that are listening that are like, what the frick is an OBM? I have so many people ask me that when I use, the term OBM. And I think there's even still some misconception in the online space. So I think starting there would be great for people that might not know what you do.
Yay! Well, what a lovely introduction, first of all. Love this for me. Love this for us. Yes, so an OBM is the acronym stands for Online Business Manager, and I equate it a lot of times, or I simplify it a lot of times by just saying operations manager of all back end operations for online entrepreneurs. And so I will usually just explain it as you have a Starbucks and you have the owner of that Starbucks store, and then you have the GM, the general manager of that Starbucks. So I'm the GM and Addison would be the owner of the Starbucks, and I kind of just oversee clients, employees, all of the operations, the sales, all the things that happen, whereas Addison's role is implementing from the top down, and then I spread from there. So that's the way I can simplify it, if that helps.
Yeah, so if you think about the general manager of a Starbucks store, they would be overseeing the employees. They would be, simplifying any systems or management, giving people roles, doing that team management, project management, probably even some systems and operations. So I think that that's a great way to think about it. For people that might be listening to this that don't really know the types of tasks and stuff that you do, I think that would be helpful too, because I obviously was an OBM. So this is because I know what happens in the back end because I was one. It's easy for me to just use the term, but for people that are okay, but what would you do in my business? Maybe we could give them some context as well too, the day-to-day, what are you working on in my business right now?
Oh, well, specifically right now, I'm working on some Stripe technical difficulties with our client management system. Usually there's a lot of scheduling in Google Calendar, Slack messages to clients, reminders, email promotional things. I mean, there's just general admin work with a lot of the time. So it's making sure that clients have access to certain things, getting guest trainings on the calendar, making sure the guest has everything that they need. Uploading call recordings, that's a weekly task that we do, notifying people when their calls are in the portals, invoicing, contracts, double checking all of those things. And then on a bigger scale, things that we look at is like launch management or sales that we're going to run, or new platforms, new offers that we're going to have out, and from start to finish, like how does that become an idea to a full blown project and it's out into the world. So that's a lot of what we do, or like making sure this podcast was ready to go for us, like just all the things.
Yeah. So I think it's important to note for anyone that could potentially be like looking for an OBM, the things you don't do in my business are like Canva stuff, social media stuff. You don't edit or, post podcast recordings. That's something that I have someone else do, like a separate, third party place, right? So like you're doing all of the technical side of things. And then I was also just going to say, yeah, with that Stripe thing, like just paying you to deal with those technical difficulties. I'm like on the couch on my period and you're like, I'm on the phone with Stripe. And I'm like, great. Like, that's fantastic. I love that. But I think even just, it would be helpful too for people, I think, just to get like that future vision. Like, for example, something that I think I really struggled with before having an OBM was doing like future planning. And I still am not like a huge planner. I'm thinking like next month. I'm not thinking like 6 months from now. But something that I really wanted to do was run a big event in August for my birthday month, because this is just a really exciting year. I'm getting married in October, and I just thought it would be really fun to like have this fun, event. And so we're, I have already basically mapped that out 2 months prior, right? Like now it's like putting together the final pieces, me doing some recording, looking at plugging in dates, as well as like maybe some checkout pages and stuff, but nothing crazy because we're doing it 2 months in advance versus, even emails we could have scheduled out by then if we wanted to, right? And so I think it's like, it's really the ability to also not just use my brain to plan ahead to say, hey, this is something I want to bring to fruition. How do we make this happen? And then I have a whole like ClickUp mapped out document of like what is needed from me and the dates and like everything to pull from. And so that also, I think just that operation side of things is cool to think about, because that, I don't know if an event or something that we're doing in August is something I'd be able to do by myself without massively stressing out. And I think that an OBM gives me the ability to work really, really fast and move fast and create fast results. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about being an OBM? What's your favorite thing about me? I'm joking.
Oh my gosh, everything. I love Addison so much. But my favorite thing about being an OBM, there was a moment when I was a VA and I started offering strategy calls to my clients, and they would get on the call and they would like brain dump everything that was happening for them. And I would like take notes on everything and then like piece all the pieces together for them. And still to this day, that's one of my favorite things in the world is when a CEO shares their vision with me or what's happening in their world, and I can like break down the little chunks and the pieces for them, or pull out the pieces that are important or priorities for whatever reason. Like being inside of their space, learning from them, and being able to like make their dreams come to life is my favorite aspect, which makes me puts myself on a little pedestal. But really all I mean is like it's just fun to strategize and brainstorm that high level like thinking with somebody who wants, like, at the end of the day, all of my clients are changing lives. Like I think
Mhm.
that Addison's work changes lives with hypnotherapy and everything else that she does. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's this domino effect of like this work is so important that we do, whether it's a Dubsado automation
Mhm.
workflow or it's freaking Stripe. It's all so important, and that's my favorite stuff to do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and you should put yourself on a pedestal because, like I mentioned, like none of the projects could come to life. Like I feel like I would be light years behind where I am if I didn't have someone helping me implement. And obviously, like I had to get to a certain level to be able to support someone long term on my team. But it's just crazy, to think about just all that we've created in the couple of years and everything we've brought together. And even last night when I was reflecting on like how my offers have changed even over the past year, like the messaging has changed, who we're serving has up leveled a lot, and all of that, I'm able to stay in the vision of what does my content look like, what is my messaging, what does my marketing look like, who's the type of person that I want to serve, and how do I make these offers better while you're focused on the tech stuff. You know what I mean? So I think that you should put yourself on a pedestal.
Thank you.
It's one of those things where it's like you can't directly like say, "Oh yeah, I helped Addison make this amount of money or do this or whatever," but like it wouldn't have happened without you. So it's like that collaboration. You know what I mean?
100%, yeah. Like, it's possible, but then also, like, the ease and, like, the lack of stress or the ability to
Mhm.
take time off and things are still being implemented is really, really cool. Or,
Totally.
the only other thing I was gonna mention is, like, client experience things. Like, there's some things that we're upgrading right now, whether it's, like, portal things or documents for and resources for clients. Like, that's a really big deal too, and those are, like, longer projects that just, at the end of the day, enhance everything that
Yeah.
we're doing too. So and you don't have to, like, you could just basically say what you wanted, and then you don't have to do anything to make it happen, which I think
Yeah, or, if we're updating a portal, like I have on my to-do list right now to record a few things and I can record that and just hand it over to you and then it's done and all I have to do is look at the portal afterward, right? And say like I'm happy with this or whatever.
yeah,
So that's like invaluable. So I love that.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I love all of it. I
Yeah,
think just overall too, just the ability for me to stay in that vision is huge for me. So
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
So I think, obviously, a lot of people probably don't know prior to listening to this episode, unless they follow both of us on Instagram, that you're not only my OBM, you've been my OBM for 2 years. You were also did TBA with me. So you were in TBA. You also, I think, after TBA, stayed in one-on-one messaging, like Boxer support for months. So we worked together after that. And then you jumped into the mastermind. I think you're coming on your 6 months here pretty soon. So about 6 months ago, towards the beginning of this year, which we're halfway through the year, is that's insane to think about. But I think obviously like we have a very nuanced relationship too. And I think this is so fun to talk about. And this isn't where I was planning on taking this episode, but I think we could just briefly touch on this because, you're also going to be in my wedding. Like you're coming to my bachelorette party. You're going to be not necessarily in my wedding because we're not really doing a bridal party, but you're like getting a bridesmaid dress. Like, so we have a very nuanced relationship. And I know that one of your fears initially in joining the mastermind was like, how are we going to hold and handle that? And I would be curious from your perspective, like how you feel that us creating these boundaries around different aspects of our relationship has helped you like grow, or how it's been for you navigating that.
Oh my gosh, that's such an incredible question, and I can't wait for the bachelorette party. But also, it's such a nuanced relationship, and I, I never this was something I always wanted, and also never knew was possible. And I just think that it's mainly you who has taught me. Like, it was the first opportunity in a relationship that I had to have such a dually and like nuanced held relationship, if that makes sense. Like, because your boundaries are so good and that's something that you embodied really, really well, it was really easy for me to follow your lead in that. And also, like, I have an anxious attachment style and I get nervous that people hate me, or if I don't hear something back, I'm like, oh my God, my client's mad at me. So, like, that is something that I don't. It comes up very, very slightly now, but I've gotten so very good at just being like, oh no, she's like, just in the way that you answer messages. Anybody with anxiety out there knows that if somebody answers a message short or with a period at the end or no emojis, like, it's all hell breaks loose and something is wrong. Like, and I don't feel that way now, and I just know who you are really deeply. And so I think that's really beautiful, but it's helped me grow in the sense that I can have these multifaceted relationships with multiple of my clients now. And it's such a beautiful thing because I get to learn from them. I can connect with them on a personal level. And there's just so much more trust being built across all levels. And my biggest fear initially was that I was going to come into the mastermind and you were going to see the problems that I face, and you were going to be like, wow, Rain's a crap OBM. Like, I got to get her out of here. Like, that was my biggest fear, is that you were going to look at me and see me as a fraud, or see me that I wasn't good enough. And I mean, that just has never happened, and now we're coming up on 6 months of it, so it just hasn't even crossed your mind, I don't think. um,
No.
so that was just like, it's also, I've grown in the sense of like, I don't feel like a fraud anymore. I feel very validated in my role and who I am, as a person and as an OBM. So
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does take a lot of boundaries, I will say. But I think the way that I looked at it, because I also had a very nuanced relationship like that as an OBM, with someone that I went on a retreat with, and it was just a beautiful relationship. And I think the way that I looked at it, because I knew you wanted to join the mastermind so badly, and we'd already worked together in the past, is just being in business requires open communication with your team members. It requires like me being, both, I don't want to say your boss because that's not really how I see our relationship, but like being, you being my team member, and then also you being in the mastermind and me being your coach, it felt like my responsibility to be like, yeah, we can hold the duality of this relationship or the polarity of this relationship, but also like to uphold those boundaries and to like stay strong in the conviction of like what that looks like. And so yeah, when you've shared different things with me in the mastermind, not once have I ever equated that to something that's happening in my business. And I would say for the most part too, I'm also not coaching and consulting you on things that are happening in my business. We've kind of separated that, but it just is like us having really good boundaries, knowing that our team Slack is for my business, the mastermind is for support for you and your big vision. When we text, it's more friend related stuff where we're talking about life. And so there is that just like energetic kind of separation that we've created. But I think personally, because we are like friends, because I know you so deeply from working in my business, I also am able to even coach you at a deeper level because we've worked together for so long, right? So I love long-term containers. That's why the mastermind is 6 months. I have a lot of people that end up re-signing for years, and then tell me they're going to come back, or for a year, because the mastermind hasn't been running that long, but for a year, and then tell me they're going to come back when they, after the year, or, just people like you who end up coming back into other offers down the line. That's something that's like very common in my business, even people that take a couple months break and then come back into. I just had someone that I did one-on-one coaching with for a year, and then she just came back into the membership. She took like a 6-month break. So that always happens. And very similarly, um, to what we were saying as far as you coming back into the mastermind. And I love that because I know the people so well that I'm able to, really coach them and see their blind spots, and take time with them to give them very personalized advice. So I think the really cool thing about you coming into the mastermind and knowing you is I knew, like, not only because you were in TVA, I knew your business model, but I was able to, we also had this relationship where I knew you on a deeper level and was able to be like, no girl, you're sabotaging. Like I've straight up been like, you're self-sabotaging. But I just think it's really beautiful. And the reason that I think it's really important to have this conversation too is because I've had, clients ask me like, okay, Rain's in the mastermind, she's also your OBM. How do you handle this? And I've walked through some like tips and tricks for like how we've handled it, just the boundaries with messages and, boundaries with like time that's spent talking about which business and stuff like that, and how we, handle different and hold different things. And they just have really, I think, admired us for doing that because people don't feel like it's possible. So I also want people to realize like it is possible. Just because someone is your boss, your quote unquote boss, doesn't mean you can't like join their programs and still be in their space and learn from them. And I think that's the beauty of the online space, right?
100%. Yeah, I've learned so much from you day in and day out. If it wasn't for you being generous with hypnotherapy audios or generous with upholding these boundaries and like saying it is possible for me to be in the mastermind, like I don't like I, it just it, not that it would have hindered growth of our relationship, but it just expanded it to a whole brand new level, which I think is really cool. And the other thought that I had when you were talking was like, it was also cool for me to come back and join the mastermind because your coaching just drastically changes for the better every few months. Like you're always up leveling, expanding, and like serving people at a whole brand new level that's deeper and like 10 times more supportive all the time. And so even more than I thought it was. Like, I thought TVA was like the best program in the world, and I was the most supported I had ever been at that point. And that's exactly how I feel now too. So I think that's really cool for people to come back and continuously come back and be like, wow, like this is still so great for me. And
Mhm.
you're always meeting people where they're at. And so I just think that's really cool too.
Yeah, and I think that that's important as a coach that you are up leveling yourself. I mean, we talk a lot about like integrity in the online space too, and I think something that I've always committed to is that I'm doing the same work that I'm preaching to my clients behind the scenes. Like we were even talking yesterday about hypnotherapy, and I'm like, yeah, for the most part, for the past like 3 to 4 years, I've done hypno 3 to 7 times a week. Like it's not something that I'm just like, yeah, you should do this, but I never do it. You know what I mean? Or just even like the up leveling and investing and stuff in general. Like I'm not even finished with a container with my coach, and I already was like, I'm signing up for another 6 months, like send me the link. So I have her, for another 8+ months, and I might even re-sign again. That stuff is really important to me, that I, am constantly up leveling and learning so that the people that are in my space are also feeling activated and feel that growth. So I would love to, for people that maybe see like the mastermind or see a mastermind and they're like, what actually happens like behind the scenes in a mastermind? Like what's the difference between a mastermind and a group program? I can obviously explain that and tell you, but you've actually lived the experience of group program versus like mastermind. And what would you say are some of the biggest differences in the two, and also just how that supported you at the level that you're at now? Because we were just kind of talking over some of Rain's wins, and in the mastermind in the past 6 months, your goal was to hit 100K for this year, for 2024, and you're halfway there, and we're just cusping on halfway through the year, so you're right on track there. You said that you've had clients pay you more than you could imagine upfront at once, like $4,000 to $5,000 pay in fulls. You have one of the highest, I think, ticket clients that you've ever had. You hired 2 team members in your time in the mastermind, or just this year in general. You have your own OBM. So like a lot of things have really shifted for you. And I feel like, the style of like a mastermind really is for that space where someone's going to the next level. They're, either already seasoned in business and they want to, hit their first 6 figures or multi 6 figures. That's really what the mastermind is for. Even more so now, we're beyond that. Like we're shooting much bigger than just $10,000 months in the mastermind, right? And so the space is a lot different, where we are talking about like hiring. We're talking about, these higher level conversations, difficult client situations, like boundaries and standards that we need to uphold to, create the big company that you want to create for yourself, right? Because you're not just thinking like, yeah, I'm a 100K business. We're thinking much bigger than that. So I feel like just maybe hearing what your experience has been in the mastermind, and also what the difference between the two is, group program versus mastermind, would be really helpful for people that have eyed the space but are like, I don't know what a mastermind is.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's such a different experience in my opinion. And um like it's similar in the sense of support that you get, but it's also so different in support that you get. I think it really depends on how you take advantage of a mastermind, of how it supports you. Whereas a group program, like you could go in and maybe not put so much effort in, but you watch the trainings or something or whatever, and you're still going to learn and retain a lot. But in a mastermind, it's like it's a space built for your growth, and that's like period. It's the space built
Period.
for you. Period. Ate that up. It's your job to go in and take advantage of the resources that are there. And I think when everybody steps into a space like that and they understand that it's like going to the gym. Like if you go to like a gym that you're paying a little bit extra for, everybody there is going to be putting 110% in, and you feel that when you walk into the room. And so it's kind of like that. You're stepping into a space where everybody's on that same level, and you're inspired by the person over there doing hip thrusts, or you're inspired over there or you're inspiring other people. And like it's just everybody's taking advantage of being together and being able to be in community together, and also taking advantage of like the knowledge that we can grab from you and the strategy that we can grab from you. But oftentimes like it's more about the community that's in there, or being able to connect and support each other.
Yeah, and I think the main difference that I noticed from a mastermind is that you're actually masterminding together, like brainstorming together. So, like I know we were just talking about this a few weeks ago. You wanted to brainstorm a masterclass, and you had this initial topic that we had kind of discussed, months ago, and then you were coming back to it. And then after, I responded and all the other people in the group responded, I think you probably had like 15 to 20 responses on that one mastermind or sorry, masterclass brainstorming like thread. And we ended up at a totally different place for the mastermind, like, or for the masterclass, a totally different topic that would support your client that you want to bring into your space and for this funnel, right? And so I think that that's a great way to look at a mastermind is I'm not taking you through a specific curriculum. We're not, saying, okay, this week we're focused on boundaries and this week we're focused on mindset and this week we're focused on marketing. It's really to support you where you're at. So a lot of the hot seat coaching calls are not going to have, a specific topic. It's like, where are you at specifically and where do you need help? So for someone that might be creating a funnel, for another person that might be hiring a team member, for another person that might be working through maybe some scarcity coming up, but it's really supported or created to support you where you're at and to have the group hold you in that. And you're around a lot of women who are moving really fast as well too, who are, don't think that your goals are crazy. When you say, I want $1 million business, they're like, yeah, me too. I'm going to be a millionaire. Like that's the kind of vibe, is in the space, which I think in the last round, we had someone that was just like, yeah, I tell my friends, outside of business that I'm going to be a millionaire, and they look at me like I'm crazy. But that's really what this space has like provided for me, is like that belief that it's going to happen. And it's just like me putting in the work to get there. And I don't care when it happens. I don't care if it takes a while or whatever, but like I'm putting in the work and I'm going to be there. And so I think that that really showcases just like the type of people and the conversations that we're having in the mastermind. And outside of that, you do get the curriculum in the portal. You get one-on-one calls with me. There's a lot of like additions, right? But again, you don't have to go through the portal. It's really just about the tailored support. And I think that a lot of times when you're at that place in business, like you don't need someone to take you through a curriculum. You're like, hey, I think I might have a gap here, or this is really where I want to go. This is my big vision. And then we just work towards like taking you there, right? And mapping that out. So one of the things that I think is really cool to think about when it comes to you coming into the mastermind space is that our very first intensive call. So when you come into the mastermind, you get an intensive that we start out together where we map out all of the different gaps that we see in your business. We take you through this like 14-page business audit, or through parts of it, depending on really what your goals are. And we sit and we map out some action items for you to run with. And sometimes that's more like standards in your business, like you need to upgrade your contracts to support this next level, or you need to change these boundaries, or let's do this like little boundary type thing that's going to help support the next level. Sometimes it's more like health related. I'm like, girl, you need to eat, you need to work out. Like we cannot be operating in business this way. And sometimes it's like mapping out marketing and higher level messaging and stuff like that. And we've done all of that together, right? But something that I think is really cool is that initially when we had started working together, we also mapped out your income, and we mapped out how we would get you to 100,000 this year sustainably. And sustainably is the key, because as an OBM, you know that a lot of times your capacity can be cut off, right? Where you can just like be working way too much, and that's not what you wanted. And so we looked at how we could map that out sustainably, like a plan to eventually raise client rates, a plan to like the type of client, or what your capacity was for attracting new clients into your space. And obviously like that hasn't come through to fruition to a T. Like some of your client relationships have changed. You've attracted new clients into your space, but it still is cool to see like us go from that initial plan to like you taking action to now being at the place where you're on track to hit your goals, right? So I would love to hear from you, just from being supported in the mastermind and like you mentioned, like the group and stuff like that. What do you feel has been the most pivotal for you to really stay on track with your goals, and to, because I think so many people set goals and then they get down on themselves when they haven't hit them, or it's really hard to stick with them. What do you feel like has been like the most support for you to stay on top of those?
Yeah, totally. Um, well, that 90-minute call was so good for me. That was like so transformational. It was exactly what I needed right at that point. And one of the things that I pulled from that call was I created a document of like, because I came into the mastermind at a point feeling really, really, really discouraged in who I was as an OBM. Like I wasn't good enough, or I didn't deserve to like hit these months or have high level clients, or I just wasn't good enough, period. And it was something that we chatted through was like writing out a standards and an expectations document for my clients. And so I did that, and looking at everything I did for clients and everything that was like supposed to be achieved in client relationships supported me so much. And like looking at something like that, and it really made me reflect on like, okay, I do so much and I am worthy, and like working through that and hypnotherapy and all of the things. So having that was huge, and kind of like resetting up my goals and being like, okay, now I'm going to be held accountable to the fact that like that is my goal. And for whatever reason, I'm just like so determined. I've talked about this before, but last year when my mom and my grandpa died, it was such a year of chaos. And I think that that was all meant to happen in the sense for me to be able to build such a sustainable year this year. And I'm still working on sustainability. Like I feel like I've got business down, I've got income down. It's really beautiful and something that I'm so grateful for. And I'm still like having conversations with Addison about eating every day and like sustainability with my health and my habits and those things. But even one of my first hypnotherapy audios I requested was on like healthy habits and brushing my teeth and all of these things, because I just hygiene doesn't come naturally to me. And that drastically changed. Or like I'm so conscious about my efforts, and like I'm not just ignoring it, I'm actually physically always trying to work on it and trying to make changes. So I think the whole group knowing my goal, and I stated it multiple times to the whole group where I was like, sustainability 100K year, sustainability 100K year. And like they were so top of mind. You knew my goals. And I think that like just being in the space, being held accountable, and then like since that's the key, since that's like the point of what I'm working towards, I not like a specific manifester, so I having a specific goal in mind is a little bit challenging, but it's the idea and the feeling and the thought of all of it that really lights me up. And so anytime I bring a situation to you, it's like, okay, well, you know your goal. So does this fit the sustainable vision? Does this fit this? Like I was bringing on a client and I was debating the rate I was going to give her. And you were like, okay, well, make sure that it fits this hourly and this and this and this. And it was like, oh, okay, so that's okay, she's keeping me accountable to the next level vision, to what I'm creating. So I think that
Like we had actually had the conversation of you kind of wanting to lowball yourself, and it was like, well, does that support, this sustainability 100K multi six figure reign, right? And so I love that with the accountability.
yeah. And there's this identity, I think on my first call where I would, or maybe one of my second or third calls, I was like Rain Tavia LLC is a company, like it's becoming a company. And after I like even just declared that identity, just so many things opened up. And being held accountable to that, and taking advantage of the space, I think is massive. Like I stated what I wanted, and it's happening.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's really cool to look at too is like we've worked really heavily on habits and stuff, which, like you said, you've seen major change in, and there's still, things that are work in progress, but we all have those things. So that's totally fine. But we've worked on like those health related things, but then we've also worked on things like your, messaging and marketing. We've also worked on like other business, boundaries and stuff like that. And I think another thing that would be really cool to hear from you is like we've spent one-on-one calls where we've very specifically just mapped out what does your next level client look like? Like what does the client look like, and how are we speaking to that client that already sees the importance of an OBM, knows they need to hire one, is ready to go to hire one, is willing to pay those 3 to 4 to 5, whatever $1,000 months, right? And we've mapped that out together, and you have very specific documents that are very clear on messaging. And I actually told you, like, forget the content pillars, forget the whatever, like we're speaking to this one person as an OBM. When you want to attract 4 to 5 or whatever $1,000 clients, right? per month, or 3, even 2 to 4. We'll say that range. Like, you should not be posting content that's like, here's the 5 tech platforms to use. Here's, this is why you should or shouldn't be using Kajabi, or this is why, you need systems. It's like, no, the person that you're talking to already knows they need systems. They already know they're struggling. They, know they need an OBM. Maybe they're just trying to find the right one. And so we've really like changed the way that you also, when you're creating content, like speak to that person and things that you talk about, and like that big vision, and holding those CEOs in that big vision. So I would love to hear, because I know that between that and like the hypnotherapy, I think are like some of the things that in my mind are like the most highlighted, is getting really clear on that strategy piece. And then also like hypnotherapy habits and stuff like that. Where do you feel like the two mesh, and how has that been supportive for you in the mastermind?
That's a great question. So I think like that call that we mapped out my clients, my ideal clients, and the content to create around that, the marketing to create around that. Like I literally still have the piece of paper that I wrote all my notes down on. Even just being held in that and having that space for somebody to reflect and bounce back to me who I am, what this makes sense for in terms of marketing, and like because I always have the ideas of like content or things I could say, but then I'm like, okay, but does that even make sense? Like, is it for the right person? And mapping that out is literally so transformational, like so massive. But then there's the piece of it where it's like, okay, well, I could do hypno on consistency of actually posting content all the time because I have all the ideas now and I know what to post and I feel confident in that. But it's actually like, okay, now I need to sit down and create it and do it. So that's my own like work, and that's with hypnotherapy. Or it's like the fear of success hypno audio where I'm like, okay, well, there's a sabotage piece happening here that you and I have identified. And so it's like, okay, I don't want to hold myself back just because I'm scared of like how big and how great things could be. So I think it blends together in that sense of like, we you do such a good job, and the mastermind does such a good job of like pinpointing the different gaps and areas I want to work on, and then it's my job to implement whatever strategy and nuggets of information I pull, and whatever mindset work that I'm trying to do. I mean, I think there's even points where I've come to you and I've been like, I think this is a limiting belief, and you're like, girl, no, you just need to feel your feelings. And I'm like, okay, you're right. Like there's just so many like different nuanced areas of support, and so I think that they all blend together in that sense.
Yeah, I love that. It's really just like the guiding you on your big vision and holding you there, and then having the strategy behind the messaging and marketing, and the offers and all the things, the pricing that supports that, but then also making sure that your mindset is supporting that. And I think you're right. There's so many people that think they have a limiting belief when they don't, and they just like need to just let it go, or to feel their feelings or whatever. And I love that in the mastermind, something that we've implemented is that we do specific hypno audios instead of like live sessions. You can do it live, but really it's there to support you when you need it. So not only do you get access to like a ton of audios and stuff in the portal, and like some of old audios, and like I keep adding stuff, but you also like can at any point, if I say, yeah, this is a block, submit an audio, you have the ability to do that. And then I go create it, or we do a session live together. So it really is just ultimately about supporting you and like that big vision, and supporting you where you're at. And then me identifying what those mindset blocks might be and helping you move through that. But overall, I know we have to wrap it up here pretty soon. I would love to hear, like, from your perspective, because I know initially you were fearful of spending over $1,000 a month on support. So for someone that might be in that boat where they're like, that's a little stretchy for me, I've never done that, how would you say that they should move through that? And then what would you say to them if they're on the fence about the mastermind and they're like, they're eyeing it, like they're clicking on the application, but they're like, I'm just kind of holding myself through the fear of, what the space is going to be like. What would you say?
My goodness. Okay. Even if you've had investments in the past that were over $1,000 a month, because that was my biggest fear, not every investment is the same, and this space is so safe. I think it's almost impossible for you to walk into this mastermind and not receive something extremely powerful out of it, especially if you're in a space where you're like, you know, it's for you, you know, you're ready. I was watching Addison's content and just being like, oh my gosh, she blew my mind every single time she made an Instagram post. And I knew it was for me, and if the money was the only thing holding me back, which it was, then I knew that that was just a breakthrough moment for me. And now, like, I'm at the point where I'm so much more comfortable with what I'm spending. I just signed 3 more months with my OBM at higher than $1,000 a month, which is terrifying and scary, but it's also so amazing. And so it's if it's a stretch, if it is feasible but you're scared, do it. And especially if you know that it's the space for you, because it's going to be clear. It's going to be a clear yes or no in your heart and your head and your gut and all of the things. And so I would say go for it. It's going to be pretty impossible for you not to receive something really, really, really powerful in that space. So, oh no, I can't hear you.
I love that. This has been such a fun conversation. I just had dogs barking, so I muted for a minute, and then I forgot. But I love all of this. I think it's been really fun to just talk through like some of the behind the scenes in the mastermind, some things that we worked on, and I'm majorly celebrating all of your wins as well too. I think like holy crap. If you're halfway through your goal, that means you've had $50,000 in cash since January, whatever, which is
Oh,
crazy.
yes.
So that's incredible, and just like majorly celebrating you for that. And I obviously love you so much. I'm so excited to have other people learn more about you. And if you want to just quickly share like a way that people can get in contact with you if they want to learn more about what you do or your offers or anything like that, that would be great too.
Yay, raintavia.com. ITS Raintavia on at Instagram. That's me. I'll be around all the time, and I love you so much as well. And thank you so much for having me. So honored.
Yay.